everybody's starting their day off in a good way. If you are tuning in, I'd like to say good morning. Say good morning. Or tuning in the evening and like to say good evening. And say good evening. Hey Mallory, how are you? Just trying to move over the camera a little bit so let us chant a little mantra this morning, or just listen to some mantra being chanted this morning, and hopefully this will help to set us up for the rest of our day of being as present as we can and not trying to do anything more than that. So mantra, as we begin all days with, is Chanting Mantra to Ganesh, the remover of obstacles, the provider of wisdom and abundance. We'll chant this mantra a few times. If you know it, feel free to sing along. If not, just listen. And the mantra just means, to Lord Ganesh, may you remove all my obstacles and provide me with wisdom and abundance. Pinnacle. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om there's a really cool story. So Ganesh, he is this little boy who has this elephant head and a big round belly, and he loves sweets. And he's not the fierce fighting warrior that his brother is. So there's a great story. There's a bowl of ladus, which is Ganesh's favorite treat, and his mother Parvati and father Shiva are standing there, and him and his brother Skanda are standing there, and they both want the ladus. So Parvati says, whoever can race around the world 3 times, the first person to finish can get the ladus. So of course Ganesh was discouraged because, his brother's a warrior, and he's, this lord and can jump over mountains and all sorts of stuff. So he was a little discouraged. He thought to himself, what can I do here? So his brother said, listen, I will do this, but there are no tricks. So no tricks at all, okay? Because Ganesh was known for playing tricks. So Ganesh said, okay, fine, no tricks, that's fine. So, they lined up next to one another, and the mother said, when I count to 3, go ahead. And again, the first person to race around the world 3 times gets the ladus. So I said, okay. So counted 1, 2, 3, and they took off. And in the matter of maybe 5 seconds, Skanda was back and breathing, and he raced around the world 3 times. And he looked up and he saw Ganesh standing there, and he said, I thought you said no tricks. And Ganesh said, there are no tricks. To me, mother and father are my world, so I simply walked around them 3 times. So when I first heard that story, I thought it was pretty interesting on how our perspective is, how our perspective can change, and how our perspective can be, different from, the actual reality, right? Because a lot of times we're seeing ourselves kind of through this distorted mirror, this distorted or dirty kind of reflection, right? And that dirtiness is something that we, kind of self-impose through judgment and judgment of others and all these other things. So when we're looking at our thoughts, and as we process our thoughts throughout the day, especially during this time when a lot of us are in, and maybe going a little bit crazy or feeling like we're a little overwhelmed or cabin feverish or whatever it may be, maybe sometimes it's just walking around the yard, right? Just walking around the yard and noticing all the birds and noticing the soil and the ground beneath you, whatever it may be. So again, when we're thinking about, our perception, when we're thinking about how things are perceived in our mind, know that a lot of it is governed by the self, right? We have 2 different forms of the self. We have the ego self, which we all kind of relate to, right? Like this is the tangible you. This is the one that you can feel, and your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your kids, your grandkids. That's all the tangible stuff, right? That's the stuff that we're able to, see, taste, hear, touch, smell, right? All the 5 senses. But then you have the other version of ourself, which is, in my opinion, the most realistic version of who we are. And that's what's called the soul body. Ram Dass used to call it soul land or soul plane. And the way that we can get to this area, the way that we can get into this space is through practice. Through some sort of spiritual practice, some sort of sadhana, some sort of practice, whatever that means to you and whatever that looks like to you. There's so much fear and there's so much anxiousness and there's so much, I need to be this way, I need to act this way, I need to eat this way, I can't do this, I can't do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. There's so many parameters and so many limits, but every person and every body is different, and we're all in different phases of our life. And Donna Farhi once wrote in her book, Bringing Yoga to Life, which is a great read if you're looking to read something during this time. Again, it's called Bringing Yoga to Life, written by Donna Farhi, Farhi. And she basically explains the phases of life. So we need to be reflecting of where we are in our life. So if we're in our early 20s, maybe we have a lot of energy and we're, doing the practice that is a lot of energy. Maybe we're in our mid 40s and things are starting to slow down a little bit. Then we get into our 50s, things start to change in our bodies, right? And then maybe we're into our later 70s or 80s where it's a time of reflection. So again, being mindful of those things, being mindful of where you are in your life, because if you're trying to be in your late 80s, early 90s and running around and going crazy, there might be contraindicating to where you need to be. So again, knowing that maybe this time is a time for all of us as a society to turn in a little bit more, to really start to really plant some deep seeds for that spiritual practice. So another great way of that spiritual practice is having a teacher, or we say in yoga, a guru. And the word guru means from darkness to light. So there's an interesting concept of gurus. There's a lot of self-proclaimed gurus, people that say like, I'm a guru, and touch my feet and, throw fruit at me or whatever it may be, right? And then there's a lot of gurus that are from from the past times, right? So we have a lot of gurus or teachers that are no longer in their physical body anymore, and that's like maybe sometimes we have pictures of them on our altar, or we have whatever things of that nature. And it's interesting as in the West, we revere these teachers that have spent a lot of time, whether through life experience or reading through scriptural texts or spiritual texts. We spend a lot of this time, I don't want to say the word worshiping them, but looking up to them to kind of lead us from our darkness of ignorance to our light of knowledge, our light of unconditional love and abundant love. So the thing that's interesting in the West is a lot of times we don't revere these teachers until they're no longer physically here. And it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. So if you have somebody in your life that is a guru, somebody that leads you from, your darkness of ignorance to your light of knowledge, then maybe that's somebody that you revere presently. Maybe you tell them, hey, I look up to you. You're my guru. You're my teacher. You're my guide. You're the one that shares to me, or you're the one that shows me or walks me away from my darkness of ignorance and hatred and jealousy and envy to the light of knowledge and love and unconditional love. So this next mantra that I'm going to chant is what I call the Guru Mantra. And this is for Maharaji, and this is for all my great teachers that have been placed on my path. So this mantra, talks just basically about, Maharaji and me seeing through his eyes and loving through his heart and allowing myself to have this unconditional love and to see everybody as oneness. So you can just sit back or lie back or listen back and just enjoy the mantra. So again, the guru, the teacher, we have to remember that we are that greatness, right? And a lot of times our fear of maybe what somebody had told us in the past has led us to believe otherwise. Maybe we've been a victim of physical, verbal, emotional, or spiritual abuse, and we've kind of created identity with this idea that we are not the way that we should be, or that we have different expectations, or somebody says oh, you're a guy, you should be this way, you're a girl, you should be this way, you're this age, you should have these kids, you should have this job, and you should have all this. And then something like this situation happens where a lot of us are just put back on the even keel, right? We're all kind of in this place of, this fear of the unknown, and people that are owning small businesses and all this kind of stuff is happening where, maybe at one point we separated ourselves from people, but maybe this is a way for us to bring ourselves back together, for us to realize that there's not really much of a difference. Not as much of a difference as we kind of project out there. Right? We identify with different things, right? Tall, short, skinny, fat, young, old, male, female, rich, poor, all these things. And like I said in the beginning of this live feed or session or whatever, the idea is our perception. So if we're able to perceive everybody out there as greatness, including ourselves, which is the hardest to do, but if we're able to see everybody out there as greatness, maybe the judgment stops. And then when the judgment stops, we're able to maybe recognize the oneness, the same. And that's something that we all need to be diligently working on. Not just people that practice yoga, but people that do anything in life. Right? We all need to have this practice of oneness, this practice of unconditional love. As they say, sabek, S-A-B-E-K, which means all together, all one. And that's what it is. We're in it all together. We're all one. So stop separating yourselves. Take a deep breath today. Hopefully you enjoyed the mantra. Jen will jump on at some point today and teach a yoga class. So again, if there's anything that you need from us, some books to read or some advice or whatever it may be, leave a comment or, shoot us an email or send us a text message or do whatever you need to do. But, don't isolate yourself and don't feel like you have nobody to turn to, because you do. And always know that you are loved, that you are welcome, and you are given nothing but unconditional love here from Jen and myself and all of us at the Yoga Hive. And we really appreciate everybody tuning in and your unconditional support and love. May your day be blessed. Welcome home. Don't be a jerk. Namaste.